Here we go. Here we go.
And we're live, another episode of The Oddest Couple. I'm Felix Levine. Across from me is John Alite with a new pair of glasses.
I wore these before.
We're happy to have another episode for you guys here today. Before we get into it, if you're already a big fan of the show, we appreciate you. If you haven't joined us on Patreon, please do. The link to our Patreon is in the description of this video. We also want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Legacy 11 Vodka. 11 times filter, 11 times distilled. This is a brand new vodka company. Sugar-free, gluten-free, available in 39 states. Soon will be 50 states. You can buy them directly on their website, which we will put in the description of this video as well. So big shout out and love for them.
Come have a drink with me. And
Come have a drink with John.
martinis.
100%. We've been getting a lot of great and not so great comments and love on our videos, but a lot of people...
You know what I laughed that you said that? I don't know why the people that write crappy watch the show, but they always watch it and they write.
Because the haters love it.
Yeah.
Because they want to see, I don't know. If you're a hater, I think you should
Well, I
drop a
only
comment.
think the problem is only the haters usually write. You like to see the good comments.
No,
because-
we have some good comments too.
No, that's what I'm saying. Usually it's
Right,
the
right.
haters because they got no life. So they write. They do it. That's why I like what Joe Rogan says. He goes, I don't even read it. He says they want to write all kinds of crazy shit.
But honestly, sometimes we read it for fun because it's entertaining.
I like reading. Once in a while, I
And
like
so,
go back at 'em.
but also it's good feedback. Like, we want to hear from our community. Like, what do you guys like about the show? What do you not like? What do you want to hear us talk about? Because we listen, like if you guys are like, hey, we want to hear more about X or
I like
Y
it.
person,
Well,
we'll do
you
it.
got a lot of them, that they'll talk shit, and I'm like, all right, then can you call the government and tell them they charged me when they shouldn't have?
Yeah.
And the Interpol boss in Brazil said that they got tapes of me with Interpol, America's Most Wanted, and blah, blah, blah. So I laugh when people say that. Like, they're just stupid because somebody wrote something about he was never in Brazil. And I spent 3 years in those prisons almost. I'm all over the news. And Interpol, boss of Interpol, is on the news saying I'm accused of and dangerous and whatever they said. But I'm on a tape. It's an actual video. It's all over the place.
Funny.
It's so crazy.
So yeah, we appreciate you. If you're watching this on YouTube, as I just said, another reminder, like this video, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, hit those subscribe buttons so you get notifications every single time the audio versions drop as well. Rate, review, all that fun stuff. Anyways, let's get into today's episode. No more dilly-dallying. We've been doing a couple great episodes recently on Gotti and Meyer Lansky. Today we want to talk about Bugsy Siegel. I know you,
Roy DeMeo.
We're taking you through everyone.
Bugsy Siegel, 1906, I think he was born. When was Meyer Lansky? 1903. Yeah, 1903.
On leap year of 1906. Or actually, no. February 28, 1906. But
Sharp guy.
Meyer Lansky, I believe it was 1903.
Yeah, Meyer Lansky, 1903, because I said last time.
Yep.
1903 because I thought he was 83. He was
Because
80 when
he died in 83, and he was 80 years old when he died.
Bugsy Siegel's 1906, and he was born, I believe, in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. He's not from the not from the Lower East Side where my father was from. Meyer Lansky, Vito Genovese,
And
but
he
he ends up going up.
He didn't have as much luck as Meyer Lansky in terms of longevity.
No, he died young, actually, 41 years old.
Yep.
They hit him sniper. We talked about that. They snipe him in Beverly Hills too. He gets hit in California, which is unusual.
So he was one of those founders of Murder Inc. I'll let you just, 'cause some people might not have seen our past videos. We just briefly describe what Murder Inc. was. And
Murder Inc. was a team of guys that they put together as a hit squad to take out other families and other guys or anybody that was in the way of the mob. And you had Vito Genovese was part of that, Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Lepke. You had a ton of guys that were serious killers at that time. So when those guys were coming for you, you knew you were going to get killed. They were extremely violent, and Albert Anastasia. So there's some serious names with that group.
And it's funny because Bugsy Siegel during Prohibition was what they called a bootlegger. So basically like smuggling in alcohol.
And he was also part of bringing in the National Syndicate with Lansky and these guys. So he's been there throughout it all as a childhood friend and a real protector of Meyer Lansky at the beginning of their lives as children.
But Bugsy Siegel, I think, was, correct me if I'm wrong, a little bit more like directly violent.
He was known to be an enforcer hitman. That's what his job was. But he was a good-looking, sharp guy, dressed very well. He's always kept himself well. And if you see some pictures of him, or people that see pictures, a womanizer. He was known to be a big womanizer, and he was married to Esther. I forget her last name, and also he was known to be crazy in love with Virginia Hill, who didn't have a great reputation. They would say she was a little loose and wild, and he loved her, and they end up getting into a crazy love affair. And she's the one that is really behind why he gets killed, because they accuse her of stealing money out of the Vegas hotel they were building. They were short about $1 million in funds. That million you're talking about, back in those days, it's almost close to 100 years ago. Not that much, about 75 years ago. But you're talking about that million 75 years ago. It's like saying you stole 15 or 20 million now. Big money.
That's big money. And it's interesting, too, because it seemed like Bugsy Siegel really, like, anything that was illegal, he was involved. Like, when everything after Prohibition, then I forget which amendment I had it here.
And he didn't like being called Bugsy. He got nicknamed that because of his temper and his ability to lose it fastly. So if you called him that to his face, he'd probably kill you, too, or hurt you. So, for people to know, he didn't want to be called Bugsy. That nickname was only from his closest friends if it was used. He went with guys like Meyer or Lucky or, Vito, but the rest of them, he didn't take to that name.
And like Meyer Lansky, he comes from a Jewish family. I think it meant a lot to him, it seems like, his heritage. And I think what interests me in those comparisons of Bugsy and Meyer, and also, they knew each other and worked together, is, those communities, like, they stick together like nothing else.
Well, he killed, I think his name was Greenberg. He was an informant. It was very
Harry
close.
Greenberg.
Yeah, so Greenberg was a good friend of his, very close to him. And, what they don't say about that, and I don't think you can read about it, is he was very upset that he had to kill him. He didn't want to kill him, but he killed him because he was an informant. And so he ends up killing him. And it bothered him that he had to do that. He really didn't want to have to do that, but he had no qualms doing it either. He did it.
I mean, and that I think is a little different, though, I will say, than a lot of, specifically the Jews. Because, like, that's like a no-go in those communities. You don't kill one of your own.
Yeah.
But that kind of shows, quite frankly, more than anything, the treachery of the mob. That, like, it literally it was treachery over, one of your own.
Well, that's why, because when they give up, I told you in the last episode, when Albert Anastasia walks Lepke in, and that's the reason, because the reels went off. The hotel, he got thrown out the window when he was being protected by law enforcement. So obviously they were paid off and they were involved. But when they go after Lepke, looking for Lepke, they can't find him. And Albert Anastasia looked at him and was like, all right, he's expendable, and he walked him in because the pressure was on the rest of the mob. So again, it shows the loyalty. There is none. And that community to turn on another, their excuse was, well, he was Jewish, I guess. But he was one of the most prolific killers around at that time too, Lepke.
So a little bit about what John was saying. I'm just reading from an article here when it comes to Las Vegas, because Bugsy was a big, like, force behind the development and the creation of the Strip.
Yeah, he had a developer that was putting up all the money, and they ran out of funds.
Right, so here it is. It's Siegel traveled to Las Vegas, Nevada, where he handled and financed some of the original casinos. He assisted developer William Wilkerson's Flamingo Hotel after Wilkerson ran out of funds. Siegel assumed control of the project and managed the final stages of construction. The Flamingo opened on December 26, 1946 in a driving rainstorm, which is interesting because Vegas doesn't really rain.
I know. It was one of the worst rainstorms.
Resulting in a poor reception and technical difficulties, and it soon closed. It reopened in March 1947 with a finished hotel, but by then his mob partners were convinced that an estimated $1 million of the construction budget overrun had been skimmed by Siegel's girlfriend, Virginia Hill, or by both of them. On June 20th, 1947, Siegel was shot dead by a sniper through the window of Hill's Linden Drive mansion in Beverly Hills. So it sounds like somebody was very pissed off about this missing $1 million.
Well, it wasn't just $1 million. He got several warnings over a long period of time that this has got to stop, spending's got to stop, and it didn't stop. And so after those so many warnings, he was too dangerous of a guy to just leave out there. And they knew they had to do something about it. He just believed he had too much pull with Maya Lansky and Lucky Luciano that it wouldn't happen. And they did fight for him for a while not to have it done, but eventually there was too much pressure from the rest of the mafia that put money into this. And they had to, they succumbed to, okay, we got to kill him.
I also find it interesting where it says, during adolescence, Siegel befriended Meyer Lansky, who applied a brilliant intellect to forming a small mob whose activities expanded to gambling and car theft. Lansky, who had already had a run-in with Lucky Luciano, saw a need for the Jewish boys of Brooklyn neighborhoods to organize in the same manner as the Italians and Irish. The first person he recruited for his gang was Siegel. So, it shows that this other Jewish mob section of organized crime really was started by Lansky, Siegel, Lucky, and, they wanted to compete with some of the Italian mobs that they had been...
the Mustache Pete's didn't want it, and they had on their mind the National Syndicate, which they bring in the Irish mob also. And it was the demise of the Mustache Pete's because they start getting killed by these guys. These guys were smart enough to bring in 3 organizations in one and expand not just in this country, out of the country with London and Cuba. Prohibition ended, which brought, Siegel into the rackets of sports and gambling, which brought him over to the idea of Las Vegas. And he liked staying with show people. Bugsy Siegel. He liked the idea of being around movie stars. They liked being around him. And he was, was a sharp guy, like I said earlier. He reminds me of a lot of, or Mark Ryder reminds me a lot of him. Mark Ryder, for people who don't know, got a life sentence, was one of John Gotti's guys, got convicted of murders and heroin trade. A very good-looking guy, had friends all over in the show business world. Beautiful woman, sports cars, boats, Harley Davidsons, and just lived a life of luxury and had a condo in Israel. They'd go back and forth. He was raised by Jewish parents. He was one of the mob guys that, as a young guy, I'd look up to. When he went on the run, I took him to Disney World. Was actually one of the places that we hid. Then we flew over to Beverly Hills.
Really?
And, and we ended up in Beverly Hills, and he was hiding out where his old cellmate, Vito, gave up his location. He was working with the feds, and they pinched him, and he got a life sentence without parole.
When did you first find out about Bugsy?
I heard stories from guys like Mark Ryder that would speak about him. These are legendary, like I said earlier, these are legendary mobsters. They learned to change when times changed. That was, I guess, one of the best things about these guys. They knew when one industry was over that we got to move into another industry. So when the prohibition ended the liquor business and the bootlegging, they knew they had to get to another business. They moved that business into gambling and loan sharking. When that business started expanding, they understood they had to get into a bigger business, into casinos. So they moved to casinos. When they needed the muscle, guys like Bugsy were one of the first guys out there doing the killing and the strong arming. And when they needed money, Lansky would handle that. And Lucky Luciano oversaw all this. And when they needed to kill, they did that also. So Messeri or whatever, when they killed him. So they understand when they had to make their moves to expand their organization.
It's funny, it says on the night of June 20th, 1947, as Siegel sat with his associate Alan Smiley in Virginia's Beverly Hills home, an unknown assailant fired at him through the window with a .30 caliber military M1 carbine, hitting him many times, including twice in the head. Some looked upon it as cowardly approach, bushwhacking the formidable and weapons proficient Siegel from a distance. No one was charged with killing Siegel, and the crime remains officially unsolved. Not funny, but very interesting, I think. Like,
I never looked into who actually killed him. I didn't even
yeah, it
realize.
says one here. I'll give you one of the theories. This article says is one theory is that Siegel's death was due to his excessive spending and possible theft of money from the mob, which I think
that was the biggest one that everybody spoke about.
In 1946, a meeting was held with the board of directors of the syndicate in Havana, Cuba, so that Luciano, this is the one we spoke about in the other episode about Meyer Lansky, of the syndicate in Havana, Cuba, so that Luciano, exiled in Sicily, could attend. A contract on Siegel's life was the conclusion. According to Stature, Lansky reluctantly agreed to the decision since they're Brooklyn boys and friends from Jewish friends from home. Another theory is that Siegel was shot to death preemptively by Matthew Panza, the lover of Sedway's wife B, who went to Panza after learning that Siegel was threatening to kill her husband. Siegel apparently had grown increasingly resentful in the control Sedway, at mob behest, was exerting over Siegel's finances and planned to do away with him. Former Philadelphia family boss Ralph Natale?
Yeah, I know Ralph. I know his son-in-law, his ex-son-in-law Eddie.
Claimed that Carbo was responsible for killing Siegel at the behest of Lansky. So it kind of seems like Lansky towards the end of it was like, this guy's becoming a liability. Like, he's my guy, but like he
was uncontrollable. So
Yeah.
anytime anybody's uncontrollable, they're
Exactly.
dangerous because they don't know where they stand. Anytime you're a loose cannon like that, guys want to kill you because they're not sure what they could do with you, and they're not waiting for you, to kill them or go out of control. If there is, it wasn't they just killed him. First off, he was warned several times. Lansky went and flew out to Vegas to see him and told him, "You got to stop. You're going to get killed." Luciano warned him, so he did get warned prior to that. So I don't believe the Ralph Natale story of why he got killed. I believe he got killed in the mob world. You usually get killed for the money.
So then why would Bugsy Siegel not be a little bit more like minding his P's and Q's?
Because it's like anything else. When there's friendships and alliances, you think these are childhood friends. These aren't just some other mobsters that he just met and you don't have trust. He just believed these guys were that close that he could do what he wants, and these guys will never turn on him. They're a little naive as much as is, because in his mindset, and I'm going to be in his mindset for a second as somebody that went out and did violent things, I think he thought I would never kill Lansky. I would never kill Luciano. I do other things, but I wouldn't kill these guys. I think he thought the same, that their feelings for him would be, he'll do what he wants and they'll yell and whatever, and he'll disagree and they'll never kill him. They wouldn't even think of killing him. He's part of the inner circle. And that wasn't the case. And, Luciano and Lansky are also talking to other investors around the world, the mobsters around the world, whether it's Chicago, New York, that also put money into this Vegas project. They put millions into this project, all of them. So they needed to answer to them before there was other consequences of maybe a war or a hit on one of them for not listening. Because say Lansky and Luciano says, no, we're not. Maybe they were worried the same, that they'd hit them if they don't hit him, which is very feasible.
Did you ever have to put a hit on someone who was part of your team that was a loose cannon?
Yeah.
Who?
And, it was a good friend of mine, and I didn't want to do it, and actually I didn't do it. And, so it just depends on the person's makeup. Will you kill the guy that's close to you? Will you warn the guy that's close to you? My friend Dennis. And, he ends up dying later on, but not by my hand.
Who ordered the hit on him?
Another crime family that I was friends with.
No, but I'm saying when you almost put a hit on him, who had ordered
I didn't know. No, another crime family. Lucchese family.
Oh, I see.
They came to me. He was a friend of mine. And actually, Kevin Bonner, who just came home, was with me at the time in Brooklyn. And Dennis was in the car, and he started to run away from me. So he started running away from me. We were in Brooklyn. We pulled over and we went into an alley. And we were actually going to do something else. And he thought we were going to hit him. And I look at Kevin. I'm like, and I said to him, I'm not killing you. And then, so at that time, and then I talked about Guy Peden in the last show. And he thought I was going to hit him. And I went to see his mother. And I says, I'm not going to hit him. I says, I don't even know why he would think, but he was paranoid because he was working. And he thought I knew at the time. I had a little feeling he might be, so I was a little more careful around him, and I was trying to help him. Stevie Newell, me, we talked about that on the show. But I wasn't going to hit him. And I went to see the mother to reassure her, I'm not going to kill your son. But with Dennis Pittman later on, his brother gets hit. They said it was Kevin Pittman that was in prison with Frankie Burke. These guys were around me, and they were good friends of mine. So I was very loyal to Kevin and Dennis. I would never kill them. But somebody killed Kevin, and I believe the police said it was accidental, something, that he went off a cliff. We know that's not true.
What's the conversation with the mother when you're saying I'm not going to kill her? So why do you even have to go to the mother to tell her that?
Because he was very paranoid. I didn't want him to rat on us.
Oh.
But he was already working. And,
What'd the mother say when you told her that?
I said, just want to talk. She didn't really have knowledge. I was friendly with his sister, and the mother knew me forever. I says, I would never hurt your son. And I meant it. When I went there, I wasn't trying to rock anybody to sleep or say anything.
Do you think Bugsy was a loose cannon because of ego, or he was just not as smart? Was he smart?
He was very smart, but he was very smart, but he was just nutty. So when a guy's nutty, he's not controllable. It's very hard to control. Scott Schumann is another show we did. He got killed. They hit him about 35 times. He was a friend of mine. Before I went to jail, I told him, somebody's going to kill you. They're going to kill you. Just don't meet nobody. And, Ronnie One Arm and these guys were afraid of Scott. And so Ronnie asked me, would you hit Scott? In a kind of roundabout way. So I told Scott, these guys want me to hit you. And obviously I'm not going. Here's another example of somebody who was supposed to get hit. And I says, I'm not going to, but I'm going to tell you now, stop meeting guys. He was abusing guys left and right, abusing captains, bosses. He was abusing, you're not going to get away with it. Eventually they're going to sneak you. They're not tougher than him. They're afraid of him. But eventually somebody's going to get him on their lap and they're going to kill him. And he ends up getting killed outside of those guys. It was, he hit his girlfriend's father and the brothers, and they all got convicted of it. Ends up catching him outside his garage off of Queens Boulevard. They hit him 35 times.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, this guy was a wild kid. And, he did some robberies with me. If I asked him to come with me, he always came. We had a couple of problems. He came with me. So, funny guy, just a little crazy.
Right.
It's a shame. This is what goes on with this life. And if you're not controllable, that's what's going to happen. There's going to be too many guys looking to kill you.
Well, I think, yeah, and it's also like it becomes just a massive liability if you can't control a guy.
Well, he was Jewish also, Scott Schumann, and another typical, tough Jew. And, in not so much with his hands. I mean, he was in and out of jails and this, that, but wild. Like if I said to him, I got some robbery to do and there's 10 guys in there, he would come. No problem. We had another problem. We were loading up in Rockaway to kill some guys, and one of the guys that was with me was this guy Peter Sakara. At the time, him and Scott hated each other. And Scott says, I would never do this with anybody, but I'm just doing it because it's you. I'd come. So he got in the car, even though they didn't trust each other.
Right.
They might shoot each other.
I mean, it's just such another world to even be in a car with somebody that you think is going to kill you.
Well, we actually got out of the car, and he came in the car with me, and they went in a separate car. So, but he had no problem coming. Peter was more reluctant to be in a car with Scott.
Where do you think Bugsy ranks in terms of?
Hitman prolific killers. Oh, he was one of the. These are the guys, when you're talking about hits and killing, these guys are serious. They're out there themselves doing the work. They're the guys killing, and he's in it. And, we haven't talked about that because we're always talking this nonsense about made guys. These guys are associates.
Yeah.
I'd love somebody to tell him you're an associate only. That's why guys just talk out of school. They have no idea. Meyer Lansky was an associate. He's not a made guy, but he's basically the godfather of the mob. So when people talk and they don't know what they're talking about, these are not knowledgeable guys in the mob world. They think they know what they're talking about. when you're talking about Albert Anastasia, he was a rat. He was a rat. They all look up to him like he's, like unbelievable. This is what the mob does.
Mm-hmm.
It's not no surprise.
Yeah. I mean, it feels though that Bugsy was, correct me if I'm wrong, specifically with the other two, with comparatively to Lucky and Meyer Lansky, he was a level below, no?
Oh yeah, he's a level below because
Like
he doesn't
those-
have the intelligence
yeah.
that these guys.
Well, he doesn't have the intelligence
He
to
doesn't have
control
the-
himself
yeah,
either. To
yeah.
like,
Listen, certain guys don't belong in these kind of organizations. Even though he grew up as a friend of these guys and he developed himself into that world, but he's not a typical mob guy because he's uncontrollable. He's not going to be. He's not like a government official. He's not one of those guys. He's just not made for that. He's not controllable. It's like a loose dog. You got a dog that just, you tell him don't bite your friend, and the dog bites him anyway, and he's a trained dog. He's supposed to be under control. He's not. So if somebody does something that irritates him, he's very impulsive, and he's gonna kill him. The same reason I talked about John Papa, the father. He did 2 unsanctioned murders, and at the time, the Chin Gigante had him killed. He actually went to trial for it, and he beat the trial Gigante. But you can't have guys just doing whatever they want. I mean, I used to do whatever I want to. And the thing is, if you get caught doing that, and that's why Ronnie One-Arm called me a loose cannon and a rogue, because you're not controllable.
did you feel like you were a loose cannon?
Yeah, I know I was back then. Now,
like-
I mean, you look back and you say, yeah, of course I was. If somebody did something wrong to me, I would tell them, and they ran to another mob guy. I'm telling them, okay, you run to them, you get your satisfaction, but after I kill you or hurt you, then I'll deal with them. I'll worry about
But
it.
do you think that was part of your downfall? Was being a loose cannon?
No, I think the way I did it is I was a little more intelligent. I think it saved me. I wasn't stupid like most guys and let them just walk you in,
Right.
because that's the only way they can kill, mostly, if they can walk you in.
Oh, I see.
Well, they have to do what they did to Bugsy Siegel, hit you that way. And they're scared to hit you that way.
And just
because
run off.
whoever hit it, if they would have missed him, he would have uncovered everybody and started killing everybody. So whoever did that had to be pretty confident and it had to be a pretty good, it's odd to me that law enforcement didn't understand. I don't know how far that shot was with the rifle through the window, but not too many people can make that shot at a distance.
Well, I was thinking it has to be somebody that's pretty.
Well, I would think they'd be
skilled.
military trained. Certain guys can make that shot. Like, I could make a shot from a certain distance. After that, I was not that good.
Did you guys have any military trained guys? No, it's hard.
I had guys that were in the military. I mean, now I have a ton of friends that were, they're guys that were, one of my good friends, and he was in the military Lance. He's a marksman.
but I'm saying like during the mob time.
Yeah, we had a couple of guys who were military guys, so they're trained a little different.
They can hit you from.
They can hit you from a
How
decent
far-
size.
how-
Phil Baroni, the cop.
Like how
that worked
far?
for- I don't know if Phil was exaggerating, but he said he can hit from 2 football fields away. I mean, I'm not sure. I never seen it, but when he stayed with me, I knew he was good with a gun. I said that he didn't have balls with his hands to fight, but with guns, like I had situations, he jumped out with me. He had no problem. He did robberies with me, with guys who were armed inside houses, drug dealers, and he had no problem. So I know certain guys that they only go after me. Phil would go with me. It was a difference. I give him his credit where it's due, but on other things he's full of shit. But on that, he
He's
had
also a
the
little
balls.
bit of a nut.
Yeah, he wasn't mentally all day very cheap. One of his biggest downfalls is
Really?
he's a cheap bastard. And listen,
Like
people
how
don't
so?
like it.
Like just
We'd go out to dinner.
And
Me, him.
never
I go
pick-
through. They went. Me and my brother were out one time with 3 or 4 of them. Phil being one of the guys. And I told my brother, I'm going to go to the bar. I guarantee you they don't pick up that tab. None of them. And they all had money. None of them were broke. And I sat there. I says. Then finally I told my brother, come on, let's go back. If I don't get that tab, we'll be here till tomorrow. They're not going to pick up that tab. No matter what, they're not going to pick it up. So these are shitty downfalls of some of these guys. You want to be the guy, you want to play the role, you got to play it. You got to pick up tabs, you got to be a big tipper. That's part of the life.
how big what percent tip were you guys leaving?
I always leave big, even now. I still leave minimum 25-30%. I left the other day. I left half, actually.
Jesus.
And I went to dinner, and when I went to dinner, my friend said, you left 40-something% tip, and whatever.
Anyways, I think that's good. I think we covered everything that we wanted to with Bugsy. If you're new to this channel, though, and you want to hear us talk about other big figures, mob history, we have so much good content that covers. You could do a whole binge weekend or week or month even probably on the channel. So if you're new here, we're happy to have you. If you're an existing viewer, we love you. Thank you so much for the support. Make sure that regardless, you like this video, you comment, engage with people in the comments. People have so much to say. Why don't you engage in the ways that you see fit? It's good for us. We get a kick out of it, and good, bad, or other, we appreciate you watching.
Hey, you don't want to say something? There was a guy, Louis, last week. You talk about the dinner, and this is off completely. And you talk about so many shitty people. It was an older guy there at dinner with his family. This guy, Louis, this has happened in Jersey. He got up. His girlfriend was there. I think he's a Spanish guy. He got up off his table to help a guy get in his wheelchair. And I said to him, I got to mention this because everybody's always talking about negative stuff. And with all the bullshit that goes on around the world, it was one of the, and you can see he was pretty, tough guy, just a gentleman, though. And got up and helped the guy get in his chair in the middle of his dinner. And people don't do that anymore, so I want to give a shout out to him. And it was at Fresco's restaurant, so if anybody wants to know where it happened, and he'll know I'm talking about him now because I said that. And his girlfriend was, I think she was, that I said that, because somebody should say something when people do something like that. It was nice to be recognized that he didn't have to do that.
100%. Shout out to Louis. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, and don't forget Oscar Lugo, free him from prison.